All right, what's up, everybody? Rob here with Rob Report, and wanted to talk about this St. Louis lawsuit for rear underride guards that kicked off this week. We got a nine-figure judgment that was passed down against a trailer manufacturer, and essentially what happened, short version, 2019, two gentlemen driving in a car ran into the back of a tractor trailer, blew through the Mansfield bumper, DOT bumper, rear underride guard, whatever you want to call it. They blew through that. The argument is that that rear underride guard was not adequate, even though it met government regulations from NHTSA at the time of manufacturer. Their argument is it was really only built to withstand 30-mile-per-hour force. That was the requirement from the government. So the manufacturer met that requirement. And actually, in this video, I'm going to show you where this specific trailer manufacturer, according to the IHS, actually far exceeded other trailer manufacturers and went somewhat above and beyond and performed better in testing. So my whole purpose of discussing this is to kind of talk about the time frame and what occurred here, but my bigger focus is it's very reminiscent of the Werner, Texas verdict, which wasn't nine figures, but it was eight figures. And there seems to be an issue here from my perspective, and again, this is only my opinion, that we have a problem with taking personal responsibility. And I say that because in both of these verdicts, neither Werner of Texas in the Texas lawsuit nor this trailer manufacturer was directly responsible for the crash that took place. They were not there. They did not do anything to cause this crash. And same with Werner. In the Werner case, you actually had a vehicle that crossed over into the wrong side of traffic, hit a Werner truck, and then basically said, "We know you didn't cause the crash, but your driver was a trainee, and your policies say that trainees shouldn't be on the road in the snow. Had he not been on the road and you'd obeyed your policy, we would not have hit him." And this really kind of goes back to the old joking argument, I would say probably from the 90s and the 80s, where we would joke that burglars were going to sue homeowners if they were injured in the course of a break-in. And while that was humorous then, we are there now. And you literally have people who are causing crashes, gaslighting the people who they hit, and then getting them to pay for it. And to me, this is totally crazy. So now that you kind of have the background of this whole thing, let's float through some videos that I
Anytime
put
cars and
together.
trucks collide, the car is obviously at a disadvantage. But one of the most devastating kinds of crashes is when a car slides under the trailer of a large truck. The guard bends, or it may break away from the trailer, allowing a vehicle to slide under it. Our crash tests demonstrate how easily some guards fail at relatively low speeds. The federal government requires that the backs of semi-truck trailers have underride guards to prevent vehicles from sliding underneath them in the event of a crash. Cars' front end structures are designed to crush in a way to minimize injuries to occupants in serious frontal crashes. But when you crash into the back of a large truck, that protection only works if the truck's underride guard stays in place.
So I think for me with this, and again, it goes back to personal responsibility. Hey, you either failed to take action or you took an action that caused this crash. We're not talking about trailers backing into cars and shearing off the front end or the top of the vehicle. You are hitting this truck. It is ultimately your responsibility. The truck is either sitting still, the truck is doing nothing that it should not have been doing. It did everything within its power to do everything right, and yet you hit it. So to me, there is some inherent responsibility factor that we are missing here, where we're talking about the truck being responsible or the manufacturer of a trailer being responsible because you ran into the back of it. I do not understand that.
The Wabash trailer had the strongest underride guard in this series. Its
Now, keep in mind that is the trailer manufacturer that was sued here, and this is an older video that actually says the Wabash trailer performed better than other trailers that are on the market in these crash tests.
Guard meets a tougher Canadian standard. This Wabash trailer prevented underride when the Malibu struck it in the center where the guard is stronger. Cars are much more crash-worthy than they used to be, but the federal standard for underride guards hasn't kept pace. Many crashes with big rigs would be much less severe with a stronger federal rule.
Thanks so
All right, now this is a combination of videos. Obviously, we went from watching crash test in the 70s and the 80s to what it's doing now in crash test now and how it performed over time and how different underride regulations have changed, whether it was the Mansfield crash that kind of pushed underride guards back to the forefront. Regardless of why it got here, we're here. We're here talking about a nine-figure judgment against a trailer manufacturer. One of the things that I've talked about in this already is the responsibility factor. One of the things that was not discussed in this trial and the jury was not allowed to hear was that they were over the legal limit. The driver of the vehicle that hit this trailer was over the legal limit, never hit the brakes, never tried to stop, hit this trailer head on, and was not wearing a seatbelt. None of that was discussed. And all of those things to me go to personal responsibility. And the jury was not allowed to hear those things, which to me is totally asinine. But here we are. So let's walk through some of these news stories. Obviously, these are a culmination of different
much for
news
joining
stories.
us. I'm Kelly Jackson.
I'm Ann Allred. This 2019 crash happened along I-44 and 55. It was near the 7th Street exit. A lawsuit was filed against the trailer manufacturer for the failure of its equipment. Yeah.
Well, a jury found the trailer manufacturer in this case responsible for the deaths of 2 St. Louis men, and their attorneys argued even though the cars rear-ended those trucks, the trucks didn't have the proper guards for protection.
These deaths were preventable. They were unnecessary.
These are the pictures of a horrific St. Louis crash, May 19, 2019. 30-year-old Taryn Taylor and passenger 23-year-old Nicholas Perkins were killed instantly when their car rear-ended a Wabash Corporation.
I have to stop right there. I want to first say that these are 2 fathers. There will be children that will grow up without them. They had families. This is totally a devastating tragedy. No question about that whatsoever. What she just said is the car hit the truck. And there's never any mention in this video of what they did, behaviors that they exhibited, intoxication, failure to wear a seatbelt. No one ever discusses personal responsibility in this crash. And I think that's so crazy.
Manufactured tractor trailer. This is called an underride.
Second, this trailer belongs to a carrier. If you actually look at that trailer is not in the best condition. While the verdict was against the manufacturer who manufactured this thing over a decade ago, it was in top shape when they put it out. It's not in top shape now, which you can clearly tell. So why the carrier wasn't sued, I do not know.
When a car slides underneath the body of a truck.
And what they needed to do to fix the problem and make it safe, they could have done decades ago.
These 4 attorneys represented the families of the 2 fathers.
And again, these attorneys, the plaintiff counsel here is essentially arguing that the trailer manufacturer a decade ago should have done something above and beyond what the government required in the NHTSA regulations. They didn't, so they got sued and now have a 9-figure judgment years later. The argument is that they could have put another $300 in a better bumper and these guys would have survived. No guarantee of that, but they're not discussing, they're essentially talking about the behavior of the trailer manufacturer and how they should have done something different, which would have led to a different outcome. My argument is the responsibility of this crash relies on the person who caused it or the people who caused it. If you crash into the back of a truck, you do not hit the brake, you are over the legal limit, you are intoxicated, you do not have a seatbelt on, which is also against the law. You are not taking action to protect yourself in the event of a crash. You are not focused on the driving task at hand, which would have prevented the entire crash altogether. So at best, there should have been some dual responsibility here.
This is one of the first rear underride
proud of
crashes
himself.
that has been tried to verdict in St. Louis City.
John and Johnny Simon, father and son, are with Simon Law Firm.
Totally
The
great.
attorneys learn upon impact, the trailer's rear impact guard, called a rig, tore off and allowed the car to go under. At trial, the Simons said the company ignored decades of research about the impacts of its rigs to prevent this from happening.
The trailer in our case was consciously designed to prevent underride in 30-mile-an-hour impacts. Every one of these
Which
trailers
was the
is on the
government
highway. The
requirement.
minimum legal speed on the highway is 40 miles an hour.
All right, so now I want to go through and I want to just basically show you some vehicles that have hit the back of trucks.
A
And
car
these are
ended up underneath the semi-truck.
basically
This happened
29%
just before
of all
8
traffic
tonight. At one
crashes
point,
in the
all
United States
westbound
rear
lanes were
ended.
closed. One person was in that car. No word on the
22% of
severity
those
of their injuries.
are involving large trucks.
Orange Corvette,
87%
seen
of
driving
all of
recklessly
them
on the northbound side
are
of the 5, hit
due
the
to
center
this.
divider before crashing into the back of the big rig. Now,
This is a vehicle into the back
So
of a
what
big
you have
rig.
here
This is on the
is
eastbound side
basically
of the 91 freeway.
FMCSA's quarterly
The
results
605
for
right in the
crash
Bellflower
preventability
area. You can
determination.
see LA County
Take
Fire
a look
Department
at
when
the
they
number of
arrived on
vehicles that
scene.
were struck in
This
the
pickup
rear
truck had
as
rammed right in the back of
non-preventable
this
crashes.
semi truck.
That is
Burst
totally
into
crazy. This is
flames.
not an isolated incident. It just happens to be the one that people are using to draw attention to rear underride guard protections. It's the devil of the day. And while I agree it needs to be addressed, I do not agree that it is the trailer manufacturer's responsibility. 87% of all tractor trailer rear end crashes are a result of distraction because of the driver being distracted. And that is a behavior issue at the root of it. And the only way you're going to change that is to get some visibility and really focus on how to change driver behavior. And I can't tell you how you're going to do that, but I can tell you that because it's a behavioral issue, we can't keep running after every new devil. Stay off the phone, don't drink and drive, and buckle your seatbelt. To me, it's literally that simple. Why we are holding a manufacturer of a trailer a decade ago that didn't even control the trailer now to the tune of $400 million of responsibility in this, I think is totally crazy.